Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 8 of Gotham called The Mask. No, this is not a reference to the classic Jim Carrey movie. In fact, it's referencing the Batman villain Black Mask, and who in the show here has his counterpart in Richard Sassinus. Now, let's just kind of start things off by talking about the villains this episode anyway. In the comics, Black Mask is actually called, his name is actually Roman Sassinus. I guess they just toned it down a little bit to make it seem a little less over the top, which is fine by me. And Black Mask's thing is he's rather similar to Penguin in that he's a mob boss with kind of a shtick, and his main thing is that yes, he wears this black mask, and if I remember the comics correctly, it's a mask he made from basically he carved the mask himself from the coffin of his father, which is actually one of the least creepy and evil things that Black Mask has done. I don't want to spoil anything from the comics because there's some really creepy shocks in there in Black Mask's actions. Suffice to say that in terms of just, oh my god, this guy is messed up, Black Mask is actually not that far off from the Joker. I mean, if the Joker was a more controlled individual, he'd probably be somebody like Black Mask. And of course, Black Mask is a enemy of Batman. He's also a serious enemy of Catwoman. And again, a lot of that goes into stuff I don't want to spoil, but suffice to say, in the comics, Black Mask did some really messed up stuff to people Catwoman cared a lot about. And yeah, she friggin' hates Black Mask. But anyway, here he's just sort of basically, as people have said, he's just a guy running Fight Club with a weird obsession with Japanese masks, and there's not a whole lot more to him than that. But yeah, it's certainly a reasonable, excuse me, a reasonable take on a prototype, if you will, Black Mask. And if they were to see him again, who's to say that he doesn't get out of jail or whatever and go off and become a mob boss now that his career as a legitimate, quote-unquote, businessman would be over. But what's interesting is that Richard takes one look at Gordon and really kind of pegs Gordon as a warrior. And he said, he kind of like, you like to fight. And that all leads up to what Gordon and Bullock talk about at the end of the episode, where Gordon says, I don't like to fight, but I'm not afraid to. And this episode really does, and I like that this really does spell out what it is about Gordon. That Gordon doesn't get off on all of this conflict. He'd be perfectly happy just to go out there and be a regular cop. But Gotham has forced him into a situation where he can't exactly have that. He's basically surrounded on all sides by bad guys. And Gordon is not afraid to fight. He is not afraid to take on the fellow cops, the mob, anybody. Gordon is not a man who is fearless. He is afraid. He does not want to die. He doesn't want the people he cares about to die. But he will fight if he has to, and Gotham is not giving him much in the way of options. But as we see in this episode, you know, Gordon may have failed last time around to take down the mayor and to take down Falcone. But as we get a nice reminder of this episode that Gordon might not have succeeded then, but don't underestimate him, because he can stand up to the big nasties in Gotham and still give them a good whack. He's not up to taking out Falcone yet, but he is not to be underestimated. And yeah, that kind of actually covers everything that I had to say about Gordon as well this episode. Barbara. Well, yeah. Well, no. Let's keep talking about the bad guys. Let's move on and talk about let's talk about Fish Mooney. Now we get what from her is a possible origin story, and you know, it's perfectly serviceable, not the most original thing in the world. But what I like is that they go on and they give it this twist that Fish was probably lying, at least to some degree, with to Liza, and just sort of telling her maybe what it is that she needed to hear. with it strongly being hinted that the old lady who was singing in the club was in fact Fish's mother. Now, again, that isn't confirmed, but it's really sort of hard to read that situation any way else. I mean, maybe that's her grandmother or her aunt or something, but anyway, looking at Fish's interactions with Penguin, it's a little sad that Oswald did not see that whole getting stabbed in the hand thing coming, but again, Penguin still has things to learn, even though he has made remarkable progress so far. And I really did like that little conversation that he went and had with his mom. One, because I'm glad that they are sort of fleshing out his mom a little bit, and it's kind of interesting her talking about the secret police and all of that, just as we've had the 25th anniversary of the Berlin Wall fall coming down. But again, Gotham is very nebulous, and deliberately so, on exactly when the show is set. But it does sort of make it clear that she's probably from somewhere in Eastern Europe, and that she grew up there during the time when the secret police were still in the running control of things, which basically kind of would put things somewhere between the late 1940s and the early 90s. But again, don't worry about the timeline too much. I mean, it's all just supposed to be that she's from the past. She's came from the old country, which was not a pleasant place. But the idea that she would get back at a girl who was being mean to her in school by basically accusing her father of doing bad stuff to the secret police shows just where Penguin gets a lot of his nasty side. Again, both he and his mom, they kind of cover all of that in this sort of very genial veil, but underneath it all, there's some serious nastiness. And his mom kind of gives him this advice. It's like, find out Fish's secret, which seems a little odd because last time around, Penguin gave this whole speech about how find out what someone loves and use that against them. That's how he's able to take out Manny. Yeah, it's Manny who works for Maroni. So it sort of seems like, well, isn't she basically telling him something that he already knows? But in any case, it does lead to Penguin torturing Tim and learning that Fish has a mole close to Falcone. And that's of course Liza, who is getting cold feet about this whole situation. And even though she succeeded in her mission for Fish Mooney, basically kind of wants out. I really think they kind of needed his. Yeah, now granted, Liza did have a moment where she thought she was going to get caught, but I think that whole situation could have used a little more fleshing out. I mean, Fish sort of accuses her of maybe having genuine feelings for Falcone, which I don't think is really the case. But whatever's going on, I think that they do need to flesh Liza out a little bit more. Otherwise, we're just going to be indifferent to whatever happens to her at the end of the day. Let me see. Who else do we have to talk about? Fish, Penguin, Mom. Nope. I think that kind of covers everything with the bad guys this episode. Oh, wait. We almost forgot. We forgot to talk about Tommy Elliot. And he is, of course, the jerky kid that's picking on Bruce at school. Now, in the comics, Tommy Elliot was actually a close friend of Bruce's when he was young. And later, Tommy grows up to be a really talented surgeon who falls to the dark side and becomes the bad guy, Hush, who proves to be a pretty serious obstacle and challenge for Batman. Hush is not somebody who is to be underestimated. But here he's introduced as just being a straight-up little bully. And, that kind of bothers me simply because, Bruce having to fight the guy who used to bullying him when he was a kid is not as emotionally satisfying or as emotionally interesting as Bruce having to fight the guy who was actually his friend as a kid. And incidentally, I didn't notice if they mentioned the name of that school that he went to. I'm actually sort of hoping that it is Gotham Academy. New series actually just started. I think they've only put out two issues of that. I've only read the first one, but it's not bad. But anyway, getting back to the whole thing with Tommy. I noticed that a lot of people were kind of upset by what Alfred did in this episode, where he gave him his dad's watch to basically use kind of like a pair of brass knuckles and literally drove Bruce over to Tommy's house to sucker punch Tommy in the face. I guess I'm partly amused by that because one of my friends in college actually told me a story about his dad. His dad actually drove him to a fight that he had with another kid. What I think we're forgetting about here is that Alfred is from the rough part of London, where if you talk smack about somebody's mom, that's going to earn you a punch in the face, probably more than one. So, well, sure, Alfred is a gentleman's gentleman, a butler. He does sort of have that street mentality in him. And, well, let's face it, pretty much anywhere you go, if you start talking trash about somebody's mom, then, yeah, the law, and the rules of polite society might say they shouldn't punch you in the face, but very few people are going to blame somebody who dispenses a little harsh justice on somebody who talks crap about their mother. Them's fighting words, as it were. Now, also people were sort of upset that Bruce said that he enjoyed hitting Tommy. And I think some people are interpreting this as sort of Bruce sort of becoming some sort of sadist. And that's not what I think that was about. Tommy had that Tommy had that ass kicking coming. He went out and he deliberately tormented Bruce about his dead parents for no other reason than he thought it would be good for a few laughs. And when Bruce knocked him a good one, that was getting Tommy what he deserved. And I don't really think it's wrong for heroes to enjoy dealing out an ass kicking to bad guys who deserve it. I mean, superheroes even said this is part of one of the joys of the job, is being able to put boot to the backside of somebody who deserves it. Batman, he's been interpreted many different ways, and one of them is, in fact, as a guy who does get off on smacking around people. But I don't really think that saying that because he enjoyed giving Tommy what he deserved, that he's some sort of a sociopath. That is really just Bruce dispensing justice. Now again, not the law. Batman is not about the law. Batman is about justice. And that sometimes, especially in a place like Gotham, you can't always obey the law in order to dispense justice. So yeah, normally kids should not, under most circumstances, people should not go around punching other people in the face. But when people think that they can go around and torment other people for no other reason than their own amusement, then yeah, sometimes what happens, and it's deserved. So I think it's more of understanding that, as I said, you can't always rely on rules and law, but basically sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands to get real justice, and that justice is not always going to come from the rules or the laws, especially in a place like Gotham. So I think that was really just more a sense of Bruce realizing that he can dish out real justice to those who deserve it. And of course him asking Alfred to teach him to fight. Well, Alfred is ex-military, and the British military is nothing to be sneezed at. So having that be the root of his training as Batman, cool. That makes awesome sense. And let's see. Nothing to particularly say about Barbara this episode, other than, Barbara is really just kind of this terrible train wreck of a character, really. And you just look at her as like, are the writers trying to make us hate this woman? I mean, seriously. She does this monumentally stuff of going to basically delivering herself to Falcone last episode, and this time around she's waving a gun around while she's been drinking. And then she goes and leaves Jim a Dear John letter. And I have to think that I can't be the only person who was just like, oh, thank God, good riddance. Now I'm hoping that they'll bring her back later on and she'll have changed in some way and become a more interesting character. I don't think she's going to come back and that she's going to be Batwoman or anything like that. I think that might be just a little too crazy, but I have a feeling that maybe the idea was to get Barbara at a real low point, have her leave for a while, and then bring her back as somebody more dynamic, and that they just sort of overdid it on Barbara's flaws. But who knows? Now, also over interesting on the good guy side, we get to see the fallout of last episode over at the police headquarters. Of course, the entire fallout consists of the cops being ordered out of their own station by Victor Zsasz, rather than Victor Zsasz murdering a police officer in police headquarters. This is not even mentioned. Not even mentioned. Murdered cop in police headquarters, and the police have nothing to say about it. So apparently it's okay if guys murder police officers in police station, but embarrassing them in police stations is not okay. Bullshit. Ugh, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. But it is what it is. And I did like that, Sarah Essen does finally step up and sort of say, like, hey, Gordon, I did wrong by you. I'm sorry. I'm going to try and stick by you more from now on. And even Bullock kind of gets it to go in there and give that speech to the other cops about how they need to stick together. Because Bullock is not exactly the most shining example of a cop that ever lived. But he does genuinely believe that the cops need to stick together. They need to watch each other's backs. Because if they don't do that, then the cops in Gotham are just sitting ducks. And then, like what happened last time around, is going to be just routine every day. There is going to be nothing the cops can do to stand up to the gangsters in any way. There can be, the cops are just going to be complete and utter whip dogs. And having some sort of a reasonable arrangement with the criminals to Bullock seems to be far better than to just basically be their bitches, if you'll forgive the swearing there. Not that I haven't already done a little of that already, but, again, probably just kind of continuing the dog metaphor there. I assure you this is in fact nothing but water. Anyway, it was also sort of interesting to see Bullock sort of playing the mediator, the negotiator there, while Gordon is the guy who's running around pissed off and angry all the time and is just like, I'm going to kick the ass of anybody who gets in my way. And meanwhile, Bullock is like, no, Jim, little finesse here, little finesse. So again, a very big reversal of their roles there. And I also liked how at the end of it, it seemed to me like Gordon was even giving Bullock himself a little bit of a warning, saying like, dude, if you kind of go back to the other side on me on this one, I'll take you down too. Which seems unnecessary after, Bullock basically was the person who most had Gordon's back last time around, so I don't know, maybe I'm misinterpreting that scene. But what is good here is that we're really starting to see the core of the honest cops in Gotham forming around Gordon. Bullock is the guy who's most got his back. Essen is starting to get on board. Montoya and Allen, not exactly allies of Gordon yet, but they've realized that Gordon is not a dirty cop, that he's not a bad guy. And I think we'll get to see them come on board eventually. And sooner or later, Gordon and Montoya will have to kind of deal with their whole conflict. But at the end of the day, Montoya in the comics, we know, is a genuine hero, albeit an extremely emotionally damaged woman, but still a hero. So I have high hopes for the both of them. We also get to see another interesting scene with Enigma, and I was looking at all of this and like, wait a minute, isn't he a CSI? Why he's not? Why is he? He's not a pathologist. Why is he doing all that? And then of course the real pathologist comes in there and is like, damn it, Enigma, not again! Get the hell out of here! And I also just got a kick out of the fact that we got to see Enigma decked out in green, Just kind of a little bit of foreshadowing there, I suppose. But again, I think it kind of contributes to one of the ideas that I've seen people tossing around, in that in this world, just how completely unappreciated he is by the Gotham City PD is kind of leaning towards being the thing that might push Enigma towards snapping and becoming the Riddler. And let me see, anything else? No, nothing else is coming to mind. Again, guys, all except for a few parts here, this is a pretty darn good episode, and the show just continues to improve. So, with that said, as always, please comment, rate, and subscribe, and of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.